This meeting is being recorded.
A very good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank each and every one of you for taking out time to be present with us on a Saturday evening. I know there could be better and more enjoyable things to partake in, to be with your family, friends, going out, and just letting go of the entire day that we have spent, or rather the entire week that we've spent working. But then special thanks for joining in here for a very, very important topic, which is sustainable living to mitigate climate change. Because we all understand, and that's why we are here, that if we don't tackle it now, it's not going to be ever. So thank you once again, and a very warm welcome to everyone joining in. All the participants, all the panelists, a very warm welcome to all of you. May I request Mr. Kurian Daniel, our Vice President, to please deliver a welcome address and welcome all our participants and panelists who have taken out time to be with us this evening. Mr. Kurian Daniel.
Thank you, Dr. Supriya. Dear Dr. Nataraj, National President ISTD, our President Emeritus, past presidents, today's eminent panelists, Dr. Prayag, Mr. D. Rajasekhar, Dr. Sanjay Deshpande, Mr. Giridhar Kulkarni, Mr. Harshavan Banu, moderator Dr. Supriya Sharma, OB members, NC members, NHQ staff, and all other participants. The mitigation piece of the puzzle is easy to explain, but difficult to accomplish. We must transition from powering our world with fossil fuels to using clean, renewable energy. And we need to stop deforestation and restore our natural habitats until we reach net zero carbon emissions, meaning that the release of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere is balanced with the capture and storage of those gases in places like tree roots. Much like investing in a retirement fund, the sooner we act to mitigate the impacts of climate change, the better off we will be in future. So far, the world has been slow to act, but momentum is shifting. India is also committed to delivering on the promises of the Paris Climate Agreement signed by 195 global parties on 12th December 2015 to bring emissions down to levels required to keep warming in check. The first step to adapting the climate change is understanding local risks and developing plans to manage them. The next step is taking action, putting systems in place to respond to impacts we are experiencing today as we prepare for an uncertain tomorrow. These actions can include diversifying crops that can tolerate warmer and drier or wetter conditions, ensuring infrastructure can withstand more extreme weather, helping communities reduce their risk from sea level rise and increased floods, and making sure we manage our food, water, and other natural resources wisely in the context of a changing climate. Climate change adaptation and mitigation are both equally and important and time sensitive, and we need to do both. You can help mitigate climate change by reducing emissions in your own life, letting your representatives know you support climate smart policies, and supporting businesses and organizations embracing renewable energy. Help your community adapt by learning how your area is vulnerable to climate change and advocating for smart policies that reduce risk. You can also support local initiatives that help people to prepare for and recover from extreme weather events, or simply reduce your use of water in times of drought. Climate change is a serious problem, but our planet can continue to thrive if we all work together to both avoid the worst impacts and adapt to our changing world. Hence, ISTD, owning our responsibility, and decided to start a discussion on sustainable way of life to mitigate climate change. On behalf of ISTD, I would like to welcome you all for a fruitful discussion and happy learning. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Mr. Kurian Daniel. You know, you summarized everything so well from the introduction to the conclusion that I think we can all wrap up now and we can go home. We are quite convinced in terms of few of the ideas that you've thrown in very subtly in your welcome address. So thank you again. And now I invite Dr. Nataraj Ray to please accept the honor of delivering the inaugural address for today's session. Dr. Nataraj Ray, please.
Good evening, and thank you, ma'am, for inviting me for telling this topic, sustainable way of life to mitigate climate change. I welcome my past president, president of Emeritus, my National Council member, my OB member, especially Korean Daniel, the brainchild of this program, and also he has done a wonderful 5-day series that is a campus to corporate. And now this sustainable or sustainability. I also welcome all the panelists who have joined today and give their views regarding climate change. Korean Daniel has given a good introduction regarding the climate change across the globe. Whatever we are facing now, the carbon emission, ice and water disbalance, and the proportion rate of human beings growth across the globe. So the learned speaker will tell on this subject. As I will learn, I listen all details thing from all the speakers today. As head of the institute, I also continue my gratitude to my OB members and the National Vice President for his wonderful program as doing last couple of months and give the branding to ISTD across the all activities in the campus to corporate. These activities will give ISTD in future more learning activities. I will tell something regarding the ISTD and head of the institute who have not yet know to the ISTD. I'll give them some input. ISTD's main vision and mission to disseminate knowledge, TND, training and development, to the downtrodden and all level of the members. This is a more than 52 years sustainable organization in the country, because many organizations they are started and they are not exist. So in case of sustainable or sustainability, IST is the only example which Korean Ji has made this program today. Thank you, Korean Ji. That IST is sustainable and it is sustainable in future also. In the ISTD, there is a 4 vertical. One vertical is the diploma, which is sustainable for last 47 years. Today, we have made the orientation program of diploma and always the learning from the current and updated matter. Apart from that, we have a membership, we have a skill development, and also we have an ISTD journals, and most important is that award. ISTD is many award is there. That is a national award, book award, best member award, best chapter awards, Kamala awards, and also ISTD Young Trainers Award. Recently, we have enlarged our feather into the Sharu Rangrekar Memorial Award. So I would request everybody to apply for this award. Young trainers are going for the accreditation for himself as a best trainer, and in chapters also there. Now I will tell another aspect that our diploma is the largest alumni in the country. Almost 26,000 people has enrolled the diploma, and many students are now in the top most of the ladder of the organization. So please come forward for ISTD as a member and other way. So my last and conclusion remarks is that ISTD is going for hosting the ISTD conference in India. This is the largest L&D conference in the country, where more than 80 international speakers will participate for that. Like Dave Ulrich, the management guru of the world, the Johnny C. Taylor, another management guru in the world, and the most important, the Jack J. Philip, RY chief, was also there. Apart from the Indian context, the Santop Misraji is there, Arundhati Madam is there, the former MD, CMD of the State Bank, and also Raghupati Singhania, Alka Mittalji, and also Professor Rao. TV Rao is also in the speaker list. Now the registration is going on. It is physical program. All are requested to be part of this program, which is May 19th to 21st in Bigyan Bhavan and also Lee Meridian. We have already invited the Rashtrapatiji, Uparashtrapatiji, and two ministers are also Petroleum Minister and Education Minister is also our patron. So mostly I would request everybody to be part of this ISTD conference. And also we are going for the paper presentation. Who are interested for the paper presentation, please send your paper at the earliest. And be a member of this ISTD conference, which is the largest conference after pandemic and Corona COVID in the country, where we are expecting more than 1,000 delegates and 80 speakers across the globe for this program, and they are share their best practices and best knowledge and disseminating knowledge for this conference. Hence, I welcome all of you to be part of this conference and enjoy for this learning of this conference, the best conference in India so far, last decades, 1 decade. Earlier we have done it, and that is a successful one. Thank you very much, and thank you all of them for their participating to this program. And you learn a lot of things for the learned speakers, and I hope you enjoy the learning. Thank you, the organizer, my friend Kurian, my colleague, OB members for inviting me for this program. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, Dr. Nataraj Ray.
Thank you, Dr. Nataraj Ray. In fact, the way you have described the upcoming ISTD conference, we are so excited to join in, and I'm sure we are all going to register for it very soon. Thank you once again for delivering the inaugural address. And now is the time that I would like to welcome our esteemed panelists. Mr. Gurinder, can I request you to please share the slides so all of us can see our esteemed panelists right there in terms of the picture and their introduction?
Just give me a minute, Supriya.
Am I audible and visible now, please?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. So I was thanking Dr. Nataraj Ray for describing the upcoming ISTD conference that we are also excited for, and I'm sure that we've already pressed the registration button for the conference. We can't wait for it to happen. And now for today's session, it's the time that we welcome our esteemed panel.
She got disconnected.
Maybe some network issue, I think so. Yes, she's back.
Here I am. Okay, so apologies for the disruption in the internet connection. It doesn't seem to be quite sustainable as opposed to ISTD, which has been existing for over 52 years now in such a sustainable fashion. Welcome once again, everyone. And we are on the session of sustainable living to mitigate climate change. And now is the time when I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists for the day. Oh, well, it's me first because I'm the one hosting the session. So it's Supriya Sharma for you. And my vision is to illuminate the world with magical experiences. I'm a business alchemist, a management consultant by profession, specializing in strategy and customer experience, an 8 times author, an international keynote speaker, startup investor in green technology domain, specifically in the EU, a sustainable travel ninja in 30 different countries across 4 different continents. And I'm passionate about golf, pistol shooting, and cycling. So that's a brief about your host, who again welcomes you for this session on sustainable living on a Saturday evening. So what do we actually understand by sustainable living? Very simple. We are saying that let's adapt a lifestyle that attempts to reduce our use of the natural resources which are existing on the earth. We are not saying that we should stop using the resources. We are just saying using judiciously the resources which are available to us. And it is something that we also know as the net zero living or the earth harmony living. So for this very important topic, something that is very relevant in our living domain, every day we are living this kind of lifestyle and we want to upgrade further. And that's why we have today's panelists line. So the first panelist for the day is Mr. D. Rajasekar. So Mr. D. Rajasekar, welcome to the session. He has been an Indian Forest Service official with the government of Punjab for the last 23 years. That's a quite long time in itself. He's a gold medalist and holder of the prestigious British Council Chevening Fellowship, which he got to pursue environmental management and sustainable development studies from the University of Wales in the United Kingdom. Now, he's also the founder of India's first ever Keshopur Cham Community Reserve in Punjab under the Wildlife Protection Act for the protection of migratory birds in the wetland ecosystem. And I understand it's a Ramsar site now. Mr. Rajasekar, we'll delve into what a Ramsar site actually means when we get to come across our discussion in the later half of the session. He's also associated with the implementation of Afforestation Project and the World Bank Integrated Watershed Development Project in Punjab. Mr. Rajasekar has served as the member secretary of Punjab's Green India Mission Project. Plus, he's been the secretary of the Animal Welfare Board of India as well. He's passionate about birding, trekking, nature watching, photography, as well as reading. Welcome, Mr. Rajasekar. Our next panelist for today's session is Dr. Prayag HS, who's been working in the wildlife field since 2003 in different capacities. So that's again, almost 20 years. He's currently the assistant professor in the Department of Animal Genetics and Breeding, and also the chief veterinary officer with KVA FSU. Dr. Prayag has also worked as the assistant director for the national award-winning film Paddavi, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, directed by Abhava Simha. So Dr. Prayag, we would definitely like to know more about this award-winning film as we delve deeper into today's session. We look forward to it. Welcome once again. Our panelist number 3 for today's session, Dr. Sanjay Deshpande, who's working as the Associate Professor, KLS IMER, Belagavi, Karnataka. His Bachelor's of Sciences in Agriculture with an MBA in HRM and a PhD in HRM specializing in soft skills. He seems to be a naturalist by deeds. He's been actively involved as a volunteer for the Tiger Census 2022, which is a flagship program of the Government of India appointed by the Department of Forest, Belagavi Division, Government of Karnataka. Also, he's been awarded as the Best Management Researcher in the HR stream during ICBM AMP Academic Excellence Awards 2017 in Hyderabad. Welcome, Dr. Sanjay. Mr. Harshabhanu, GP, welcome to today's session. Thanks for being with us. He is currently the DFO, Belagavi Division, Department of Forest, Government of Karnataka. He holds a Master's of Science in Agriculture and a Diploma in Forestry. He's also the visiting faculty for Mahatma Gandhi Rural Development Institute and an awardee of the Special Scholarship from ICAI at national level. Welcome, Mr. Harshabhanu. Mr. Giridhar Kulkarni is our panelist number 5 for the day, and he's a senior software engineer plus a naturalist.
Giridhar has dropped.
Okay.
Giridhar has dropped, so.
Okay, all right. I thought he was joining in at a later time somewhere. All right, so Mr. Korean Daniel in the beginning mentioned about the climate change according to the Paris Agreement and the 195 countries that is actually signed in. Now, in a new report published in September 2018, the world's leading climate scientists made their starkest warning so far. They said, our current actions are not enough for us to meet our target of the 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming. We need to do more. Now, that is something difficult, sounds like, because the change is definitely required. We are settled that the climate change is real. There is no question about being real or unreal. We are very sure that it is real. We've seen what has been happening in Miami. We've seen the millions of people who are suffering in the Brahmaputra, in the northeastern region of India, and also how the plants and the animals have been disrupted in terms of their lives in Australia because of the climate change. Now, the question arises, are we the humans who are responsible for this climate change? And if we are, what can we actually do? But before we can start taking actions and before we can start measuring whether our actions are enough or not enough, the question arises, for a normal person who is doing her or his day job and then taking care of home and then enjoying a social life, for somebody like us, what does it mean to be suffering from climate change, or to be rather the victims of climate change? I would like to throw the floor open to our panelists for the day. And Dr. Sanjay, would you like to start by explaining to us what does climate change mean for a normal person like us, for a layman?
Thank you so much, Supriya. It's a great honor to be on this platform. What is sustainability? It sort of gives me goosebumps to tell about this, and also it gives me some fear. Sustainability, for instance, imagine there is a lake and there is a crocodile in this lake and there are quite a few fish. This crocodile gets too greedy. It's not exercising self-restraint, and it ends up consuming all the fish at a time, at a point. It doesn't think anything about its future. It takes up all the fish in one gulp and the population of fish is over. So what will this crocodile do tomorrow, the day after, next week, or the next month? What will it do? This is a very simple example to tell you what is sustainability. When we are unaware of the consequences, the dire consequences for the future generation or for our own selves in the days to come, this is sustainability. When we are unsustainable, our future is grim, is at peril. Talking about climate change, what is climate change in a very simple way? We all know that the earth is heating up because of the heat trapping gases that are getting accumulated in the atmosphere. I have one solid evidence to tell you. For men, especially for men, look at the body hair on your on your body. Look at the body hair. We are slowly losing.
घडी उघडली
We are
की
slowly.
तशीच आहे. आम्ही तिला विचारते कसं काय
Uh,
करता येईल.
May I request all the
Pratimaji,
participants to please stay muted? Thank you very much.
one straight evidence and testimony for climate change impacting men is look at the the quantity of body hair on the body. It slowly become rudimentary and it's slowly losing away. We are losing a lot of body hair. During the olden days, our ancestors, our primates had a lot of body hair because the climate was very cold. This is one evidence that gives you that climate change is happening invisibly, unconsciously. For women, for girls, the puberty, the rate of puberty or the age of puberty is advancing. So all these are medical studies have proved all this, that climate change is evident, inevitable. So we all need to gear up. This is the basic conceptual clarity that I want to give, that climate change is inevitable and we ought to have a sustainable way of life. My aim was to give a lot of conceptual clarity. I hope I've given it. So I give the mic back to you, Supriya. You can give it over to other panelists.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. Mr. D. Rajasekhar, may I invite you to help us with the relation between sustainability and climate change? Again, because we understand from Dr. Sanjay's explanation that sustainability is taking care of the needs of the present without compromising on the needs of the future generations. And on the other hand, we understand also that climate change refers to the long-term changes which are happening in the weather patterns and how the world is being impacted by it. I would rather say a negative impact it is causing it. But how are they actually related? And how can we make sure that we are going to live in a better world going forward, not affected or rather not impacted negatively by the relation that sustainability and climate change hold?
I hope I am audible to everyone.
Yes, you are.
We got the discussion. In fact, one of the pet topic for me since my training days. So that is why I had accepted the invitation. The sustainability, as such, being a forest officer, we talk only in terms of forestry alone. But later, when my knowledge base widened, so we have sustainability factor in each and every aspect of our life. In fact, in order to sustain our own life, we have to sustain ourselves. That is the way I put it, the sustainability. If you want to sustain yourself in the overall larger ecosystem, the Earth, we have, of course, only one planet Earth. That particular one planet Earth living concept, I had learned it long back in 2005 when I went when I was undergoing that studies in University of Wales. So, but unfortunately, we have that divide. We have the divide between the, say, whatever we can say, backward nations of very developed nations and developing nations, or whatever the term we can use, depending upon the scientific terms. The unsustainable way of living is being practiced in the West, but they are the promoters, or they promote, they propagate, they study a lot, and they advise the other people. That is the developing nations, like a country like India. you try to do sustainable way of sustainability. But in my studies, during my studies, I have given a report. In fact, when I completed, I gave a report to the Commission of United Kingdom. I met the chief of the Forestry Commission, UK Forestry Commission. I said that you have hardly 6 species now, 6 species wildlife species in the entire United Kingdom, the Great Britain. They have only hardly 6 species left, whereas we have 6,000 60,000 species in India.
Yeah.
So we have a different sustainability. We have a different complete biodiversity. We have a very rich biodiversity. We are one of the richest country in the entire world, we can say. And we have a greatest forest cover, almost now 25%, the latest forest cover report. So within the meager resources, that is the most important thing. The meager resources in which the forestry sector gets, the sector, I'm talking about forestry and the environmental sector, with a specialized focus on forestry and wildlife, from that particular survey, I will leave it to the wisdom of the other panel members to touch upon the environmental degradation and other things also. But the focus, what we get, what we do, is more wonderful work, and we have achieved. We have tried to achieve our emission standards, carbon footprints. The way which we live at present is definitely sustainable. Of course, of late, due to the modernization or due to, say, all this LPG, liberalization, globalization, and privatization, we can say, there has been loss of focus. That we can definitely understand. The modern generation, in fact, those who did not study the sustainability, what I had I even suggested to my government, to my state government, that the sustainability, this climate change, the environmental degradation, these should be introduced very much in the curriculum of youngest children possible. The way which we had, I will just take 1 or 2 minutes.
Mhm.
The way which we declared the Ramsar site, at present it is a Ramsar site, definitely in Punjab, but it took a lot of time. Almost say 25 years, the Forest Department of Punjab was trying to declare it as some protected area. But definitely it cannot be declared under Wildlife Protection Act because the area is owned by community, that is panchayats. The panchayat owns the land, so you cannot declare it as a wildlife sanctuary or national park or anything, any other protected area. So they have been trying for last 25 years. The migratory birds come and go every year, but there was no such protection. So later on, we had started the discussion with the local people, and we had a series of lectures, and we had series of meetings, we had series of awareness campaigns in the schools and colleges of the locality, the Gurdaspur district. And we could convince the people about the importance of conservation and declaration into an protected area. Thanks to the recent amendment, the latest amendment in Wildlife Protection Act in 2002, long back in 2002, the community reserve category and conservation reserve category has come in. So that particular thing we had taken. So we convinced the people. We said that the land ownership will continue to be with the people, with the panchayat, whereas the protection will be given and you will have a development. So that way only we had developed that India's first community reserve in Keshapur. So now it is a very famous Ramsar site, and there has been every year bird census are happening. 35 to 40,000 birds are flocking, including the Saurus cranes. So that is my second aspect of touching the sustainability would be the pillars of sustainability. What we focus here, being maybe we can say due to all kinds of compulsions, the political, maybe the economical, or any social or any other compulsions, we always give this first pillar as economic. Instead of that economic, it should be ecological. So the three pillars of sustainability, it is societal, economical, and the financial, or whatever the three pillars of sustainability. We should give more and more focus towards ecological restoration and ecological sustainability. In fact, this should come from the young minds. So my focus and my humble request to the honorable panel members, as well as the attendees, we should try to give a recommendation out of this particular webinar to the government or to the policy makers that we need to inculcate this particular ecological sustainability in school curriculum, right in the youngest age possibly. So that should be the focus. And with that particular point, I will join little later because I need to give the honorable other panel members who are more wiser, and I wanted to learn also. So despite all these things, this particular curriculum is not happening. I have been observing in many schools and colleges. I have been lecturing in many schools and colleges as well during my free time as a freelancer, of course. And I would suggest the ISTD to take up this particular key point and give a recommendation from as an organization, investing organization, to the government, to the policymakers, to the government of India. So thank you very much for giving this opportunity. I will join little later with my more further points. Thank you. Over to the moderator, please.
Thank you, Mr. Rajasekhar, for first of all for sharing the story of the Keshopur area that is now a Ramsar site for bird watching enthusiasts like me, and I'm sure there are many more here. And secondly, for drawing a very valid point on the focus which is required to bring about a change in our ways of living. And you mentioned about the ecological pillar and the introduction of that pillar in the curriculum. I would like to move forward to Mr. Harshabhanu, and I would like to ask him, according to him, what is the single most important thing? What is that single most important thing that the humanity has to do in the coming years, according to you, Mr. Harshabhanu, in respect of this climate change?
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I shall start this conversation with one folk song, very small song. It is in Kannada. Later on, I will translate it to English. ಬೆಳಗಾಗೆ ನಾನೆದ್ದು ಯಾರ್ಯಾರ ನೆನೆಯಲಿ ಎಳ್ಳು ಜೀರಿಗೆ ಬೆಳೆಯೋಳ ಎಳ್ಳು ಜೀರಿಗೆ ಬೆಳೆಯೋಳ ಭೂಮ್ತಾಯಿನ ನಾನೊಂದು ಗಳಿಗೆ ನೆನೆದೇನ. So this was the folk song which was sung by our forefathers, mothers in every villages whenever they woke up in the morning. It says that whenever I woke up in the morning, whom shall I remember? I shall remember the one who gives me the cumin and sesamum, til and jeera. That is Mother Earth. I shall remember her first, the first moment, and after that I shall start my all other works. So this was the culture, this was the tradition, this was the thinking that our forefathers has sown in our villages. Apart from sowing the seeds in this one Mother Earth, and they have harvested produce. Apart from, they've also harvested very beautiful humanity way of living, and they have inculcated in their next generations. So the single one thing that we have to think at this juncture is, are we inculcating same thing to our next generation? Are we telling them and giving the same wisdom? What is the real value of life? Whether it is materialistic or what we want to take from here. So if we think about this one, and if you see same thing with climate change, since almost 2 decades back, we have tasted water in every streams, nalas and lakes. Just wherever we wanted, we have taken the water, and with that liberty we have drunk and we have enjoyed it. But can we do same thing now? We will blame our next generation that their resistance power is not good and they are not at all capable of withstanding. If they drink water somewhere, they will get cold or cough. And wherever, when we will be sending our next generation, means kids, we will with a caution and remind, we will send, beta, please don't drink water outside. Beta, please take this water bottle with you and only drink with this bottle. And whenever the guest used to come, used to offer first water and then next jaggery or something, then sweets. But now if anyone, if they come or if we go, if they offer water, we will tell, no, thank you. Just now we had, it was there in our vehicle, or just I took a sip of water. Thank you. That means we are afraid even to taste water outside. So who is responsible for that? Not the person from other planet, are not animals, birds. They are living in sustainable way. Animal or bird will not store something or will not keep extra which is not required for it. Next, this one. It will teach how to hunt or how to gather or how to only take the seeds and eat on that day, and it will finish it off that day. There will be day end for it. But for us, the day it will never end. So with this one, we have to focus more on our next generation. We'll always tell when it comes to sustainable living, keeping the needs and aspirations of the next generation. Whatever we have enjoyed, they should also enjoy the same way. But the enjoyment in which way we are showing, in that respect, we have to concentrate. And with this opening remark, I will hand it over to Ms. Supriya, please.
Thank you, Mr. Harshabhanu. And segueing from this, we move on to Dr. Prayag. And Dr. Prayag, we would like to know from you, as individuals, what does sustainability actually mean for us in terms of the lifestyle that we hold every day? And what are the little changes that we can bring about in order to see a better world for ourselves and for the future generations?
Good evening all. I'll be speaking because my country is good. Hope I am audible.
Yes, you are. Yes.
Yeah. So to answer the question, I have to read this book called "Our Iceberg is Melting" by Harvard Professor John Potter. So it's a parable about penguin colony. I recommend this book to everyone. This small parable where the penguin will discover that the crack in the iceberg. The captain go and tell one of the lady penguin who is equally curious and who is open about any problem in the colony. But you have the same system there in the penguin colony. It has to be convinced the assembly, the head of the people, which includes the elderly people, the skeptic, all the stuff. So these two people go and tell there is a crack in the iceberg, and our iceberg is melting. So we have to shift this place because once the icebergs start melting, they can't sustain there. So it's a reflection of the society, how one issue told to the higher ups, maybe policymakers, the politicians, how they are very skeptical initially. So some of the people agree to advocate. Some people, like our ex-president of US, about climate change, it's all about. So there are people like that, and they don't want to even listen to them. Finally, what they do is they want to give a demo. They will take a place where they crack and they will demonstrate.
Dr. Prayag, can I interrupt you there for a while, please? Your voice is not clear. We are facing a lot of disturbance here.
Now is it okay?
Hello? Maybe a little better. No, it's the same. It's the same. There's a lot of background noise, I believe.
Wait, let me go to a better place. Is it okay now? Hello?
Sounds like. Please continue.
Yeah. So finally, the lady who is curious, who supports the guy who discovered there's a crack in the iceberg, they convince tomorrow they will meet up and give a demo to the colony heads. They go and they demonstrate that the iceberg melts. What would happen to the entire colony by giving an example of water filling the bottle, it gives a crack. So some of the people tell, no, it's a natural occurrence, nothing to worry, why bother about it, just I think people telling all nonsense things. But the thing is real, the climate change is real. So then they tell, imagine what if the future generation will have the problems. We may get along because we have hardly few years to survive, but our coming generation may not just spare us, because they will tell our forefathers knew the problem, yet they ignored. So let's give it a try. So likewise, they devise a mechanism, they build a team. So then they are convinced in the next experiment that this is very much real. What is the solution for it? So they look for a new place to go. So they see the seagull, they change as the climate change, as the season change, they do migrate from one place to other place. So now there's a team of people to solve for a new location. They come back and tell there's one more island which we can shift once this iceberg start melting. So they are celebrated, means they achieve a small goal. Likewise, the entire parable depicts how to adapt to change, how the challenge in our life, it may be our individual lives, in a family, in a society, in a government policy level, in a country, in the world. So it's a beautiful example told in a parable we can tell to our children's bednight story, or it could be a scientific thing on a very big platform. The principles are same. So I would request everyone who are speaking about this topic, a small book, it's available in a PDF on Google, Iceberg is melting. So this is what I would conclude, that if you can make small changes, that this world has enough of our needs, but not for our greed. So what we are telling now is something what our forefathers have done during their lifetime. Now we are going back to the same thing. So that we call it as minimalistic living, sustainable living. All I feel now is, if you can go back to our forefathers, what they were doing from early morning to bed, that would be a right thing to do. With this few information I have gathered and I have seen in my own thing, I don't go a long way. This is my own perspective. I don't tell this is a national anthem and everyone should sing to it. This is my perspective, which will add to the panel discussion. Thank you. So please excuse me, I have my movie at 7:30 screening. So please excuse me, I'll take leave from the honorable panelists and all the people attending today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us, Dr. Prayag, and we hope to learn more from you in future.
Thank you. Last one, before concluding, since you mentioned about Padai, we did have the message of sustainable thing in Padai, because if you see fisherman community, they are following the sustainable fishing, and there's to only fish during the fishing season. Because of the modern thing, they have steel boats, we have greed, there's to even fish during breeding season. So a lot of things have happened in Mangalore coast because of the greed, because now they can have ice plants to fish even during the breeding season. That led to a lot of catastrophe. Now things are getting normal. In every field, we should go back to our previous forefathers' way of life. In every aspect, I feel that's a way to lead forward. Thank you very much. The movie dealt with the background of fishing community. Thank you very much.
Okay, is it possible for you to share a link in the chat box for those of us who would like to watch the movie?
It's available. I'll do it. It's available on YouTube. You just type Padai. Padai means west. If you're looking towards west, in Mangalore language, Padai means the fishermen go to the west, direction wise to go for fishing. So, but the attraction is again west. His son wants to go to Dubai. Leaving the fishing life here, the attraction of Dubai is so intense among the few people in Mangalore. I think life is in Dubai. So I will definitely put that link in the chat box so people can watch that on YouTube. It's a 100-minute movie based on Macbeth, how human greed, Duncan, all the stuff. It's a wonderful watch for all people who want to learn about simple things in life, not to be greedy. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again. And we come back to Dr. Sanjay. Dr. Sanjay, we've talked about the movies, we've talked about what we've learned from our forefathers and how do we implement it in our present day life. But then I have a question here. When you talk of eco-friendly living, with specific reference to the use of renewable resources in our day-to-day lives, don't you think it's an expensive affair for an Indian household?
Yeah, thank you, Supriya. Again, in fact, it is not expensive. It is pocket friendly. I'll tell you how. I have some images to share here. Just a minute. Can the audience be on mute, please? Can okay. Supriya ma'am, give me a minute. I would like to share my screen so
Sure.
that okay. Okay. Is my screen visible to all of you?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, talking about small little things that we can do, I understand that the major contributors for global climate change are automotive industry and assembly, aerospace and defense, advanced electronics and semiconductors. This is by a report which is given by McKinsey. Okay, McKinsey Global Institute. Okay, and just to tell you what is climate change, if the climate across the globe goes up by 1.5 degrees Celsius, that is called as climate change. And you may be surprised to know that we have already crossed this limit, and we ought to have some measures. We ought to have some measures. So, talking about pocket friendly initiatives or eco friendly initiatives, can we have our houses in this way? Can we have our houses and offices built in this way, where the entire building is my voice clear?
Yes, 99%.
There is some, I don't know, people are not on mute. I don't know. There's some disturbance. Okay. So, can we have our houses, our offices built and made in this way, where the houses are constructed and covered by creepers? Now, what will this do is, this is a climate change is one such issue where nobody can say this is not my problem. It's a very thick blanket which is covering all of us. Now, buildings like these will ensure that the walls and the floor do not get heated up. They don't absorb heat, because whatever heat is falling on the surface is absorbed by the leaves of these creepers. So the demand for air condition will come down. So when the demand for air condition will come down, naturally chlorofluorocarbons and the carbon emission goes down. And it is pocket friendly because you don't have to be very fancy on spending on very costly paints, branded paints. So this can be a very pocket friendly and eco friendly initiative. You can save time, you can save labor problem, you can save your time on choosing which brand, which combination. So if our houses can be built this way, the demand for air condition will come down, which which signifies that the emission of chlorofluorocarbons goes down. This is another picture to show you. Our colleges can be like this, our hostels can be like this, our offices can be like this, our apartments can be like this, where the entire house is covered by creepers, and the heat absorption is minimal or negligible. We can do this by taking up one program on behalf of ISTD to all the architectures across the country. We can have one specific program for all the civil contractors, civil engineers, architects. That is the next program that I want to suggest the national president and the vice president here. So that is my next program. Can we promote these earthen pots in software companies, in schools, colleges? If you want an aesthetic appeal, the picture to the right is more probably more appealing. But instead of high-end refrigerators costing more than a lakh rupees, again requiring a lot of electricity and emitting chlorofluorocarbons, can we promote these urban pots, earthen pots? This can also make the lives of people who This is in fact a cost saving initiative for many companies. Now, can we have some cut, some check, some restraint on big fat Indian weddings as the nomenclature goes? You can see there is a marriage celebration here, the marriage ceremony here, the crackers burnt, emission of greenhouse, and lavish food, and debris that is left behind needs a lot of water to clean those utensils, and all this actually goes in the landfill, which is not decomposable. So can we have a very simple way of life, cut down on big fat Indian weddings and trim them down? Because we all talk about zero figure, we all talk about fitness, we all talk about losing kilos, inches. So can we have some cut down on big fat Indian weddings? All of us can do it together. We can promote such messages across our society. um, this is a very emotional picture where a daughter is feeding her father, and you see very closely that father and daughter duo is sharing the same plate, meaning to wash this utensil, the water required is very very minimal, and this is not cost effective. This can be done in every house, and that water saved can be used for some other purpose, which I am about to tell you a little later. Now this is very emotional, which is not very difficult to do, but we can do this. Okay, and next you can see that there are many deprived people who struggle for one food, whatever food that is left out with. We can do this. And just to come back to this old picture, I do this at my home with my kids. Okay, uh, the water that you have saved there by not washing it, washing the utensils, you can use that water to fill bird bath. Now, what is a bird bath? It's a tray, it's a utensil, it's a pot like thing where you fill water, and you can attract a lot of birds, avian visitors to your house, and you make their lives thrive. And you can see there is a mango sapling here. Now, in the next month and a half, the mango season is arriving. Mango season is around the corner. Now, one appeal to all the audience, every member here, is those mango seeds and droops, don't throw them away after consuming. After you crush and take the pulp out, don't throw them away. Use a little mud from somewhere, uh, keep it in a corner, just immerse it in some mud, and you get a sapling, and you give this sapling to someone who has good space in their own backyard, or probably your friend who has a farmhouse, and probably somewhere else where it can be planted. Can we have another practice of giving certificates of adoption? Now, Zoo Authority of Karnataka and Zoo Authority of India have started this initiative of adopting animals in the zoo, starting from a minimal range of 1,000 rupees to 1 lakh rupees. Now, in their name, you can gift the animals, you can give these donation certificates to your friends, to your kin. So instead of spending on Amazon, or instead of spending this money in a pizza corner, why not spend and adopt an animal and gift this adoption certificate? Because the money that goes in there is to save some life, and also to take care of the expenses that zoo people or zoo staff get, which is very very paltry. So the more donation, I think there is sustainability, and there is thriving all over, and there is this spreading of happiness all over. These are some things which I wanted to tell you. I reiterate the fact that all these initiatives are not expensive, they are eco-friendly, they are pocket friendly. Thank you. I now hand over the stage back to you, Supriya.
Thanks so much for actually sharing it. It was indeed an eye opener, because these days, when we talk about sustainable living and eco friendly living amongst the architects and the interior designers, it's always a high end thing. And that's where we say, oh, it's going to cost a lot of money. Maybe it's not for a normal Indian household. But with the kinds of things, the small things that you have just shared that we can do on a day to day basis, that can actually make a whole lot of difference in the way we contribute to the environment. So thanks for that. We move on to Mr.
and and
Rajasekhar.
and, and, and
Yes,
just to
please.
add
Yeah.
another point, these are not just teaching over, talking over. This is actually preaching. I practice all these things.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank
The moment I saw those greenhouses, I mean the houses with the creepers on them, I was reminded of my life in Europe. Whereas if you compare it to India, the building owners might not be very willing to do something like this. So we take it up a little later, maybe during one of the questions that we do. We move on to Mr. Rajasekhar. And Mr. Rajasekhar, my question to you is, we generally hear about taking lesser flights and going for more eco-friendly measures in terms of transportation and modes of commute. And that definitely reduces our carbon footprint. We all understand that. But I want to know from you, how much of a difference does it really make if I, as an individual, take lesser or fewer flights than I usually take?
Yeah, thank you for that particular question. It's a very pertinent question. In fact, I also wanted to share one of the slide, maybe right now.
Sure.
Yeah. I hope the sharing has come.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yes. What can we do for sustainability? This is what reduce, reuse, and recycle. So when we reduce our footprint, we say lesser flights. Okay, that is possible or impossible for business commuters, but definitely we can do the road transportation like carpooling or whatever way we can do is to reduce the carbon footprint. I hope I can get across the point. Reduce unsustainable practices. For example, if I go in a car, being provided an official car, I can always take along with my colleagues. I can pull the car. I can reduce the carbon footprints. That I can do. So reducing the individual usage and increasing community pooling of resources, that can happen. And similarly, I can show you one more thing with respect to our own the forestry agenda. So this is the status of forestry. The projections, and then you can see how we basically are. What I am completely talking about the forestry and wildlife because I wanted to leave it to the environment here. So to conserve, say more than say 3,000 tigers, we have around 250 crores. To cover 30,000 elephants, we have around 33 crores. That is the priority or the budget allocation in case of forestry. So 300 crores for an area, managed area of 72 million hectares. That is around almost say 70%. So this is the ecosystem services evaluation is more and more important. It is gaining importance. That is number one. With respect to the reducing of footprints, in case in your pertinent question, we definitely cannot reduce the flying the high flyers or frequent flyers. That we cannot do because that has a importance value as well. At the same time, the Indian population is not everyone is flying. So everyone is most of them are using. In Tamil Nadu, there is a model called the community traveling. Here in case of say metro or in case of buses within the city. So there are so many ways to reduce this kind of pollution, especially in cities like Delhi. We have local buses, local commutes, local trains, and local buses, and local metro as well. We can definitely reduce within taking the car out. So I have advised even the younger generation to take the bike out. Bike means we can ride two people. So instead of one, So we can write 2 people. These are all practical examples I am just trying to give. I'm not advocating. And I would share the one. What else we can do? So in case of our management principles, the environmental management principles, most of the environmental people knows about it, precautionary principle and polluter pays principle. So this is the principle which we should apply completely to the corporates. The precautionary principle, of course, it is almost gone now. So polluter pays principle can happen with respect to corporates, in terms of their CSR funds. If they are polluting, then they have to pay. They have to pay to reduce their own pollution. They can do the greening, green cover, increasing the green cover or eco development projects and other things through their CSR funds. This particular one thing we can think of. And the last one would be 3 pillars of sustainability, which I had. So this is the way we should reverse it, basically. Right now, we have the economic, social, and environmental. This is the way it is arranged in case of sustainability. The first one is economic, second one is social, and third one is environmental. I have arranged it in reverse. In fact, environmental protection. Planet should come first. Reduction of carbon footprints, water usage, non-decomposable packaging, wasteful process. So we can do the conserve and protect. And next comes the people, social development. It's about treating the employees fairly, ensuring people and other things, stakeholders, involving everyone. And then third comes the economic development. So time to give back. That is the way which I had advocated, the CSR funds, the polluter pays principle. So with this particular thing, I would like to hand over to the other panel members to dwell upon and then to come up with very concrete conclusions and recommendations. Thank you very much, Supriya, and thank you very much to the organizers.
Thank you, Mr. Rajasekhar, for bringing us back to the people, planet, and profits at the end, of course. Thank you. And we move on to Mr. Harshibhanu. A very specific question to you, Mr. Harshibhanu, since you have been dealing in the forest department for such a long time and had versatile roles in there. You've dealt with, or rather you have a regular interaction with the flora and the fauna. And the question to you here is, we have read in many of the articles in many lifestyle magazines that if we convert our eating habits to more of greens, rather consuming more of plants as opposed to the animal-based food, it helps in making the world more sustainable. So what is your take on this? How does it contribute to the food chain, and how does it really help the environment?
With respect to our foods and our needs, as Rajashekhar sir was emphasizing on 3 R's, like reduce, recycle, reuse. So since 10 years as a faculty of Mahatma Gandhi Rural Energy Institute, I always no mute. So I always emphasis on another thing, that is refuse. If you refuse first, then all these 3 things can be handled very well. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are. We can hear you well. Mr. Harshibhanu, are you still with us?
Just a minute, I'm having a network issue, so just I was setting it. Now, am I audible, please?
Yes, please.
So if you refuse first, wherever it is, if it is not required for us, the first instance, we should directly refuse it. It might be anything. It will start from if somebody, after we have taken our breakfast, if we go visit some nearby friend's house or anything, they will forcefully try to give something because it will become a customary for them. So first instance, we should tell, no, I had, and it is enough for this moment for me. So thank you so much. So it will start from there. And the second thing is, refuse has to start in everywhere. If you go to any shop, the shopkeeper will only give it some bags and everything. So can we take the bags and go, and we should refuse? No, don't give that bag. I'm having already a bag. So that is the second thing. And third thing is, if you can walk for a distance, and if the vehicles are not at all necessary, if it might be 500 meters or 5 kilometers, depending on individual capacity. So if you start walking instead of
I think he's facing some network issues right there. Probably we'll move on to the last segment of the discussion, and segueing from what Mr. Rajasekhar mentioned about the polluter pays principle in the industries and the manufacturing industries in specific that we are referring to.
Yeah.
My question
Supriya,
to
he's
you.
back.
Oh, okay.
He's
yes,
back. He's
Mr.
back.
Harshibhanu, please continue.
I'm sorry, I'm having some network issue.
We understand. It's all right.
So if it is about soaps and detergent is like that, more than required we are using nowadays. Everybody will understand if I say this one. So more than required, as I was quoting, when Lifebuoy advertisement used to come 20 years back, that was the only Lifebuoy hai kaha tandurasti hai waha. So except Lifebuoy, we did not have any other detergents and soaps. But now, if you see, we have in our cupboard or in our homes or in a bathroom, there will be 10 to 20 types of shampoos, detergents, and specifically for one reason, we'll keep one thing for dry hair, for so many things, whatever it might be. But if you see very in this perspective, the detergent, what we are leaving to the water, that same water again, it is coming to us from somewhere. So we have to be very careful when using this one. And this is the highest pollution happening from these two things, apart from the plastics. So controlling these two things and controlling our greed is definitely a way. And only keeping our needs in our mind, then we can take ahead. So with this, I will hand it over to Ms. Supriya. Thank you so much. Sorry for interruption in middle.
That's perfectly all right. Thank you, Mr. Harshibhanu. And we move on to the last segment of the discussion. We started with the individual level, we moved on to the households, and now we are moving to the industries or the economic sector in specific. So changing how the industries are run or they're subsidized doesn't sound like anything we can contribute to or we can influence at personal levels. Is that the real case, or is there something that we can actually do? Do we have a say in running these industries or the way the subsidies are provided to the industries to help establish a greener environment or a more eco-friendlier environment that we live in? Dr. Sanjay, would you like to share something on this?
Yeah. Yes. Supriya, there are quite a few things that are in our control. Probably policy intervention at this point of time is not in our control. To be very candid, majority of the population, especially in a developing country like India, are not aware about the impending danger that climate change poses on all of us. This is a great demon which is out there to gulp us, to swallow us, which most of the people are not aware. And industries continue to churn their practices, emit a lot of smoke, and this race of GDP, that we want to become a developed nation, economic growth, this sort of chasing, this sort of chasing the economic goals is not only the criteria that industry owners should understand, But to be very candid, we have some things in our control and some things not in our control. Probably policy intervention currently in this platform, not in our control. But what is in our control is there can be an awareness program. Everything starts with some awareness. Through the platforms like Confederation of Indian Industries, through organizations like, through apex bodies like CRIDAI, which is for real estate. For manufacturing, we have CII. For software industries, we have NASCOM. What I want to suggest here is we as ISTD members need to get in touch with these apex bodies, tell them that the impending dangers of climate change are very horrible and we will have harrowing experiences in the days to come. So what can we do together? How can we join hands to mitigate climate change? I want people to understand it is just not about achieving 10% or 9.2% of GDP. This race of achieving economic goals should not be the sole motto, because that is coming at a cost. The kind of the intensity of smoke billowing out of these industries is harming everyone. So what we can do at this point in time is try and find out the apex bodies like Confederation of Indian Industries. This can be done by ISTD, this can be done by Forest Department. One joint meeting with all these different bodies, awareness, just make them aware that all this is happening. Frequent floods, drought, people living along the coastline are clobbered by frequent floods. So different bodies who have some say need to come together, join hands, have a meeting. It can be ISTD, it can be Forest Department. Join hands, make some strategies. Everything starts with awareness. Tell them that these are the impending dangers, and then take it from there. And the other thing is, who is going to bear this cost of transition? For instance, if the machines have to be made green, or if the smoke, some change in you asked me this question in the previous segment, who's going to bear this cost of transition, making our industries more eco-friendly, more people-friendly, more environmental friendly? The subsidy there matters a lot. So subsidy not merely to start an industry, subsidy to mitigate the emission, subsidy to get over this transition. I am ready at any given point of time to be in a panel which ISTD forms or Forest Department forms, and to have a joint meeting with all these apex bodies and just create awareness first and then take it ahead from there. Thank you, Supriya.
We get your point, Dr. Sanjay. And very quickly, we would move on to Mr. Rajasekhar to see if he has some final remarks on this industrial domain for sustainability.
Thank you.
Great. Mr. Harshabhanu,
I have
what
completed.
is your take on this? All right. Thank you, Mr. Rajasekhar. Thank you. We move on to Mr. Harshabhanu to see if he has something to contribute that we can do on our personal levels in the industrial sector to see the way that they're run in a more environment friendly manner.
Yes, in industrial sector, if you see, in industries, everyone will be working, and industries will be doing this planting activity, all such thing. But how many industries are there? It might be so many, might be service sector or manufacturing sector or anything for that matter. If all the workforce with their families, if they come out with planting a seedling, minimum one seedling for family, so that will contribute a lot of things. Earlier days, they used to tell, they used to plant trees. It might be jamun, it might be jackfruit, anything. If they have eaten somewhere, and they used to bring that seeds and so on, they used to grow it, so that our next my daughters or grandchildren may eat that one. But now that type of bondage is not there. only whatever we get, we should get today only, and we should only enjoy it and we should leave. So that is the scenario. Instead of that one, if every one of us and all the industrial areas, wherever it is possible, it might be horizontal or it might be vertical, wherever it is possible, if they can do gardening, planting of trees, and only planting and forgetting is not enough. They have to water it. Only when we water it, it will grow, and we should treat that leaf as our lungs. We should not treat leaf as a litter. Even in industries or in our household, wherever we treat, if it is a tree is there, we treat it as a that litter will be there and leaf will fall. So it is problematic for us. Instead of that, if you treat it as our breath, if you treat it as our lungs, then we can take it further. So all industries and uh, all people working in those industries, if they think in this line, at least one seedling per family, wherever it is possible, if they plant it, that will be a great way to go ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Harshabhanu. So I'm very confident that all of us has taken away at least one, if not five, but at least one thing that we can start doing right from today, going back to our homes and start living a more healthier, a more greener lifestyle in terms of sustainability, not only for us, but for the future generations as well. I now open the floor for any questions if any of the participants have for our panelists. Do we have any questions, please? Are there any questions coming in, or we see that we are all ready for intended action? Okay, perfect. That means we've done a great job and we are all ready for taking action going forward right from this moment, the moment we are leaving the Zoom session and we are going back to our families and having a great weekend with them. I would like to now invite Mr. Samba Siva Rao. He's the RVP South for
Supriya,
ISTD. Yes,
Supriya, sorry to intercept. One program that I have direct access to, Natraj sir and Kurian sir here. Sir, my appeal as an ISTD member and a naturalist is we can contemplate positively to start a certification program on sustainable way through the ISTD platform. This will be for graduates to start off with, who can make their careers in the long run. So one certification program for about 3 months or 4 months, where awareness and the impending dangers and so many things can be taught. So sustainability and climate change, one certification program which can be offered across the country. This can be our another program other than ISTD PG diploma. Thank you so much, Natraj sir and Kurian sir.
Yeah, sure.
This
We
is a
will
request to
consider
you.
it. Yeah, sure.
Yes.
thank you for sharing
Thank
that,
you,
Dr.
Supriya.
Sanjay. I invite Professor Samba Siva Rao for delivering the final vote of thanks.
Friends, I think good evening to all of you. I'm happy to be a part of this panel discussion. I think we have a good speakers with a practical exposure, and it seems they are committed towards the sustainability. I think Dr. Supriya started with the introduction, and she moved to the family, to the environment, to the industry. I think Dr. Sanjay has given very good examples how to be more sustainable and all that. And he has given a crocodile example, fish pond and all that, to think about the future generation. And in terms of the ecological issues, also he has given a number of the practical things. I think the society is moving slowly towards that direction. Now I think the youngsters are thinking how best they can reduce the call the environmental hindrances and all that. Then I think now we have the IFS, the expert, the Dr. Rajshekar. I think he rightly pointed out the 3 pillars of sustainability. He said reverse way of giving importance by the industry. On the government also, that's called, he said, environmental issues should be the first, then go move to the social, then he moved to the economic, the issues. I think is a mix. We can't give 100% to each the pillar, but it's a mix of all those. Ultimately, we want to have a sustainability. In that process, I think somewhere you can have a some the ratio and all that. I think Dr. Harshabanu, I think he started with a song. I think thinking about the family, mother, father, and all that. He rightly said you have to think about the needs of the next generation, so that they can also enjoy all the fruits, not just only we enjoying all the benefits at present, but we have to still think about the next generation. And next, I think the prags are, I think some disturbance has come, but here and there I catch some words. He said the thoughts of the forefathers and all that, their way of life, how they lived, and we have to carry some message from our own ancestors, the past generation and all that. And he said the fishing and all that. I think the government of India is also now and then going for the fishing holidays, and fishermen also accepted. They stop the fishing also. Otherwise, they won't have the fishing in the next day or next season. So they know it to have a better life. So they should have a holiday, and they are giving the holiday and all that. I think the speakers touched the core issue of sustainability. And for me, I think when we are constructing a building, the 5-story or 10-story or 20-story building, then we will see the sustainability of the building itself. Unless we have a strong foundation, I think we cannot construct a 20-floor or 30-floor building. So I think that is the way that we have to think about it. 10 generations, 20 generations, 30 generations, and all that. So otherwise, so what we are giving to our next generation is very difficult for quality of life. That's more important. I think now somewhere the attitudes are changing. In that process, I think we may have a better future for our the sustainability of our life and quality of life. And ultimately, whatever the government, either the state or central government, will take a what called the legislations or rules and regulations. Unless the people change their mindset, I think it's a very difficult task. And Sanjay sir is telling during the marriage and other things, the keeping the plants and growing the plants and all that. But the mindset is more important. Unless we bring a change in the mindset of the people, I think any law cannot do, particularly in India. So that is our duty, being an ISTDian and being a human being. That is our duty to educate our own fellow human beings to follow certain norms, bring some changes in our own things. Then I think we can continue a comfortable environment, because everybody knows any resource is a scarce resources only. We don't have an abundant resources. So how best we can use efficiently the scarce. So I think with this, I thank and the Madam Dr. Supriya for moderating the things, and also thanks to our friends, National Vice President and Dr. Kurianji, and our National President Dr. Natarajji, and our National Office staff for supporting this the panel discussion. And also sincere thanks to all the participants who participated in this. And I think they might have enjoyed the presentations of all the panel speakers and all that. With this, I thank one and all.
Thank you, Professor Rao. We really appreciate this. And you did a great job by hitting the bullseye with the word mindset, because everything starts with mindset. We can sit here, we can talk for 2 hours, we can talk about
Yeah.
the theories and the practical aspects, but if we do not have the mindset, it's good for nothing. So we are going home with a mindset of a sustainable living. My thanks again for taking out time, to all the participants and the panelists for being with us. It's your host Supriya signing off, wishing you and your families a great sustainable Holi. Thank
Thank you,
you and
Dr.
bye-bye.
Supriya and all panelists. And special thanks to Guruvinder.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Good
Thank you
night.
so much. It was nice platform. Happy weekend and good night.
Good night.
Thank you so
Good
much.
night.